we got coming in? Johannes from Sweden. Liz Oliver. Hi, Liz. Carmel. Liz Martin. Aaron. Phil Atkinson. Sue Hart. Pam. Caroline Sillett. Who knows where you are at the moment, but Saskia Hansen.
I'm in Dartford.
Dartford.
Not far.
Pat O'Connor, Linda, Caroline A, Rocky. How you doing, Rocky? Grant Foster, Anne Borders. Who else? We've got so many different people coming in. Nika. Hi, Nika. Nicola. Ken James. Hi, Ken. Okay, let's get started. So, seventh in the series, humor. I think we'll have some fun tonight. I would put a warning up front. I've just subscribed to Jim Davidson's Ustream app, and he refers to his channel being unwoke, which I quite like. So we won't be woke tonight. And also, we will probably need to put a little bit of a parental advisory warning on this evening's session, just in case you've got kids listening, or even to the into the recording, which I know a lot of people do. So what we're going to look at tonight is humor in the context of everyday magic. So we've already covered this. I'm just going to do a little bit of a refresh on this. There is a structure to everything. There's a structure, there's a pattern to everything. And what we looked at before is what's the structure and the pattern of a person's problem that leads them into an undesirable state. And what we've looked at so far is identifying that pattern and then ruining it, destroying it. And though there is a structure and a pattern to everything. So therefore, there is a structure and a pattern to humor. And if we look, and once we've got the pattern to humor, then we can take the structure, take the pattern, change the content to be relevant to the context that we're working in, and create humor or a joke out of everything. So this is what we're going to talk about tonight. What's the pattern of humor? And big picture, the pattern for humor is a context reframe. What we're doing is we're doing a pace, so that people believe or experience that they know what we're talking about, and then they do a sharp, almost obtuse context reframe right at the end, which is not what the person was expecting, and therefore it makes us laugh. So what I'm going to give you is a number of examples of this. Now, I'm not expecting you to be able to come up with a pattern straight away, which is why we're videoing this. You can watch the video, you can watch the recording a number of times and then come up with the pattern for yourself. But once you have the pattern of this, then you can create your own versions of it. So here we go. Step 3, examples of the pattern of humor. as some of you, or most of you, or many of you may know, that I originally come from a small mining town called Mansfield in North Nottinghamshire. And I lived there in the 60s when it was still a mining town. Yeah. And that was the main thing that happened in Mansfield, was mining. And so the miners would go to the mine first thing in the morning. They'd go down in the lifts, go very deep down into the ground to dig out the coal, and they'd spend the entire day there because it took so long to get them down into the deep mine. Before then, at the end of the day, they would come out of the mine. So they had lunch in the mine. And there was this young, bright guy. He was an electrician, which is why he was called Sparky. And Sparky was down there one day with his boss. And they're getting out their packed lunch. And his boss brings out this metallic cylinder, which Sparky had never seen before. And Sparky said to him, "What's that?" to his boss. And his boss said, "Well, this is the most amazing invention that anybody has ever made on the planet. It has totally transformed my life." So Sparky now is intrigued. He goes like, but what is it? Oh, it's the most amazing thing. Whoever invented this is an absolute genius. Sparky's like, no, what is it? What is it? And his boss goes, well, it's a thermos. Well, Sparky had never heard of a thermos before. So he said, well, what's a thermos? And he goes, well, it's this amazing invention. Look. And the boss like unscrews the whole thing and describes it to Sparky. And Sparky goes like, well, but what does it do? And the boss says, it's an amazing invention. It has changed the world. It's the thermos. It keeps hot things hot and cold things cold. Well, Sparky's really majorly motivated by this point in time. He said, where do I get one of them? And he goes, well, go to the market square. They sell them in Boots, but they're quite expensive. So Sparky saves up his money for a couple of weeks, and he finally has got enough money to be able to go to Boots in the market square and buy his own thermos. And the next day he goes down into the mine, and it's lunchtime. And with great pride and joy, he gets out his own personal thermos. And one of the lads who was working with him goes like, Sparky, what's that? He goes, well, greatest invention in the planet. Whoever came up with this is an absolute genius. But Sparky, what is it? It has completely changed my life. It's unbelievable. Yeah, but Sparky, what is it? And Sparky takes it out and unscrews the top off the thing. And he goes, and the guy goes to him, but Sparky, what does it do? He says, okay, it's a thermos, but what does it do? It keeps hot things hot and cold things cold. So the lad who's with Sparky goes like, what you got in there, Sparky? He goes, 2 cups of coffee and an ice cream. That's a Mansfield joke for you. That's the only clean one I've got. Now, after I've been in Mansfield for a while, we moved to Nottingham. I then went to University in Manchester, and then we went to Macclesfield. And that was my first proper job, which my mum is still very proud of. And because I was making some money, then this would be 1994, I could, for the first time ever, go abroad on holiday. And I was going skiing. This would be January 1994, skiing in Italy. It's the first time I've ever been on an airplane. So we're on the airplane. I'm so excited, but a little bit nervous at the same time. And, the plane takes off. I remember saying to my girlfriend at the time, wow, this is really fast. There are cars that accelerate this fast because I've always been into cars. And, we get to a certain height and the pilot comes on and says, "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is your captain speaking. Welcome to our flight to Malaga today. We'll be flying for approximately 2.5 to 3 hours, depending on air traffic. We should be cruising at approximately 30,000 feet and actually flying at around about..." Oh, shit! Total silence. There are cabin crew running up and down the aisles. There are babies crying. There are women screaming. There are so-called men like me acting as if we're tough, grabbing onto the side of the chair with our white knuckles, absolutely shitting ourselves, thinking we're going to die. And it was the longest 5 minutes, I think, of my entire life. And finally, the captain comes back on. "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is your captain speaking. I apologize for that rather abrupt interruption on my last broadcast. What was happening was that one of the cabin crew was bringing my coffee for the flight, came into the cockpit, and as she came into the cockpit, she tripped over and poured the steaming hot coffee into my lap. As a way of an apologization, all I can say is you should see the front of my trousers." And the guy behind me goes like, "You should see the fucking back of mine." You're starting to get the pattern yet? So anyway, this didn't deter me from flying. So I think it might have been the next summer or summer after, I was going on a holiday to Spain. And I got on the plane, we're flying to Malaga. And the takeoff was fine, no coffee in pilot's lap, nothing like that. All very nice, very, very calm. Nice guy sat next to me on the airplane. I always like to have a chat with people on the airplane. I think, if you've got a flight, you can have a chat with people and you meet some really interesting people. And I did meet this interesting guy who sat next to me. And it turns out, we're going to Malaga. It turns out that he's actually a musician. He's a guitarist. And as some of you know, I'm a guitarist as well. And so, we're chatting away, blah, 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 blah. He's going out to do a tour out in Spain. He's going out for the summer season. I'm just going out for a holiday. But, we get chatting about playing music, guitars, all this kind of stuff. And then we finally, short flight, because, you're chatting, you're having a few drinks, whatever it may be. And we finally land in Malaga. We hit the runway, nice landing, nice smooth landing. And, we see the terminal building and we think we're going to be turning left to go to the terminal building, but we don't. We go straight past the terminal building to the end of the runway. Now, I'm starting to think, what's going on? I'm looking out the window because I'm in the window street, looking out the window, and there are police cars following the airplane. And we pull up at the end of the runway with the police cars following us all the way to the very end of the runway. Then, those steps that they have, on the back of a van. We don't see those very often these days because normally it's like like the gantry that comes out. The steps come out and it comes up to the side of the plane. The cabin crew open the door, and the police storm in. They come up right next to the guy next to me with guns and go, "You're under arrest." And I'm going like, "Whoa, what's going on?" "No, you're under arrest." I said, "What? I don't know. What's going on?" "No, we've had a tip off from the person sat in the row behind you that whilst you've been having a conversation, this gentleman here has admitted to being a Basque terrorist." And I'm going like, "What? A Basque terrorist? He's not a Basque terrorist. He's a fucking bass guitarist is what he is." So you might have already got the pattern here. Pace, 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 lead, and watch the video again, and you can get the pattern for it. And it's all happens in the last minute, where it's a context reframe, which is a surprise. Now, how can we actually use this when we're working with individuals or groups? So let me give you this particular pattern. And I discovered, or I developed this by accident, though I don't believe in accidents, to be honest with you. I was doing one of the veterans programs. It was Army, and if I remember rightly, it was. I'm going to sneeze. Oh, excuse me. It was 30 men, all ex-Army. And there was a certain point in this particular training where they started taking a downward spiral, talking about horrific experiences that they had. And one guy started off and the other one like, "Oh, you think that's bad? This is what I experienced. You think that's bad? This is what I experienced." And it's doing this, spiraling down. Now, if that happened on a public training, I could go like, "Okay, guys, like drop that. Let's focus on what we want." And though this is a unique demographic, also, I am not ex-military. So if I do something like that, let's turn it around, let's focus on what we want, then we go like, "Well, you're not military, David. You don't know what it's like." So I had to watch this situation spiraling down. I had to make sure I was in Hakalau, which we talked about in one of the first sessions, to make sure I was in a great state, because my belief is that when you do that, there's always some opportunity that will enable you to turn it around. And what happened was that one of the guys in the audience said to me, "David, do you know the color of adrenaline?" And I said, "No." He said, "The color of adrenaline is brown." As in, you shit yourself, right? Just to explain that a little bit. And I said, "You're right. I already knew that." And they said, "Well, how did you already know that?" I said, "Well, I'm from Mansfield originally. And when I was at school, kids at school, infant school, junior school, you have dreams about what you want to do someday. You dream about being a train driver or a bus driver, or even if you got really high ideals, maybe it'd be like you're a pilot or something like that, But this mate of mine had a different dream. And his dream, unusually, was to be a lion tamer. A little bit odd in those days. But he was motivated. He was driven. And, there was one week where a circus came to Mansfield. This is the days of real circuses when they still had animals. They had elephants, they had lions, they had tigers, they had monkeys, they had all that kind of stuff. So my mate, being driven and being motivated, goes to the circus and goes to find the lion tamer. And he finds the lion tamer. And he says that he finds the lion tamer. He said, look, when I grow up someday, I want to be a lion tamer. Will you teach me to be a lion tamer? The lion tamer said to him, of course. Yes. And if you want to be a lion tamer, you've got to have the appropriate equipment. So my mate goes like, well, what kind of equipment do you need as a lion tamer? He says, you need a chair. Because unknown to most people, lions have a phobia of chairs. So if you're in the cage with the lion and you've got your chair and the lion comes at you, all you need to do is go like, whoa, with the chair, and the lion will back off immediately. He says, a very little known fact. He said, but when you see like a newspaper article about lion tamer mauled at zoo, and there's a picture, what is never in the picture? A chair. Or if you see something about family goes on safari in South Africa and gets mauled by lions, what was never there? A chair. So here's a safety tip for you. If ever you go to South Africa, you go on safari, always take out a folding chair with you. So if you get attacked by lions, you can just get out your folding chair and go like, whoa, and the lions will back off immediately. Now, this mate of mine from school was quite bright. So he goes like, well, what if I'm in the cage with a lion, I've got my chair, but I just happen to be in the cage with a lion that doesn't have a phobia of chairs because the lion's done a training with the performance partnership and let all of his phobias go. What do I do then? Because I'm going to like, whoa, with the chair, and the lion's going to go, whoa, like this. So the lion tamer says to him, okay, so what you do then is you reach behind you, you pick up a lump of shit, and you chuck it in the lion's face. Then it'll back off. But this friend of mine's bright. He's like, but what if I reach behind me and there's no shit there? And the lion tamer says, trust me, there will be. So this was how I discovered this or developed this pattern, which was to interrupt, disrupt, and redirect. They all burst out laughing. And I rode the laugh, I let them laugh. And then I went, okay, great. Now let's work on letting go of the next emotion, whatever it is. Which is this pattern here. Interrupt, and you've got to wait for the right time. You can't interrupt it too early. You've got to let it ride out. I think sometimes what a lot of people do when they know what we know is they go, uh-oh, it's all going wrong. We need to get in there fast. No, let it spiral down, maintaining your own state. And then if you've loaded up enough examples of these jokes, that's a particular, shit joke, which was one that was relevant for what we were talking about, then what we do is we pace it, we interrupt it, we then disrupt it with the punchline, the laugh. I've got 30 guys laughing like crazy. They can't believe that they're on this program and there's this guy up at the front of the room telling them jokes. And then I immediately then go into the redirect. That will work on one-on-one as well as it'll work on one-on-many. So that's how we can use humor in everyday magic. Now that's going to take probably a little bit of work, a little bit of practice. I've given you some examples there that you can, watch the video so you can look at the structure of it. But the big picture structure of it is what you might call a sharp angle context reframe, where the people think they know where the story is going, and then suddenly it goes off in a completely different direction. So any questions about that? Or any learnings or anything like that? Sally, you're up if there's any questions.
Nope, nothing at the moment. Stunned silence, David.
Okay. Few possibilities on that. I did a completely shit job, or I did a really great job. I'll take the other one. Okay. This could be the shortest evening of the entire series.
So what do you do, David, if you're not very good at jokes?
That's a limiting belief. Everybody is funny. So, think about it. You haven't seen your friends for a good while. You go out for a coffee with them. You go out for a couple of drinks with them. And everybody around the table is going, oh, you'll never guess what happened to me. Oh, this happened. And everybody around the table is like falling down laughing. Everybody is a stand-up comedian. You just need to move it from a context in your mind. Everybody tells everybody funny things. Now, I've given you particular structured jokes because I got nothing to work on. Yeah, there was no input in the first place. But, everyone, if they think this way, can start to make something funny out of everything. And, I decided that I was fairly boring as a trainer. I was a good trainer, but I thought I was fairly boring. And I decided that I wanted to become more entertaining. So what I did was I used my NLP skills to model stand-up comedians. To the point, then you just get the information loaded into your mind. And then what will happen is, just like it did with me, the lion tamer joke popped into my mind. I went like, right, Hakalau is the most important thing, because then you're in a state where you can tell it and you also remember it. State is the most important thing. It's fascinating. I got hired to run NLP trainings for stand-up comedians. because the guy who ran the stand-up comedy training school, this isn't just for like hobbyists. This is for professionals. These are people who got 5 gigs a night. And he said, I've been told you're the funniest NLP trainer in the world, which I took as quite a compliment because I considered myself before to be boring. Could you train my stand-up comedians how to use NLP in their act? And they didn't know any of it. I watched old school comedians, you know, all of them used anchoring and all these kind of things, you know, and they didn't know any of those existed. So I ran this training and I said, okay, let's get one thing straight. I'm the NLP trainer. You're the comedians. You make people laugh. I'm here to train you. And then I had them laughing for the entire 5 hours that I was working with them. So anybody can be funny. Anybody. But one is you've got to believe that you can be funny. And I believe you already are. It's just you don't put it in that context. Yeah.
Okay, Phil's got a question for you, David.
Okay, Phil.
Hi. I quite like using nested loops.
Okay.
Funny stories, but actually not delivering until, you know, build up 3 stories and then actually deliver the final one, deliver the punchline one after the other right at the end when you've got people hooked.
Yep.
And I just wondered what your views were on that. I mean, it takes quite a lot of planning, you know, but I use it if we're talking about leadership, we're talking about team building. I'll build up scenarios and I'll say things like, of course, this would never happen in this company, would it? Because, or it never happened in your team. And I just wondered what your views were on that, or have I completely gone off the edge and away from what you've been talking about?
No, not at all. Not at all, Phil. So, you know, a comedian that uses what you call about nested loops, nested metaphors. And let me just explain what that means is what you do is you start telling a story, but you don't finish it. And then you start telling another story, but you don't finish it. You start telling another story, but you don't finish it. So that, you know, the example that Phil's given you is that the punchline is missing at the end, but it's set up. It's almost like you've set up dominoes. A comedian that's very, very good at this is Billy Connolly. Another comedian who's very good at this is Eddie Izzard, though now we need to call him Susie Eddie Izzard, if you've seen the news today.
Yeah.
I'll prefer to call him Eddie. And so, you know, it's great. I mean, one that I use a lot is about, I think it was Gandhi. And there was this lady and her son was addicted to sugar. And she said, don't eat sugar, don't eat sugar, don't eat sugar, don't eat sugar. But he totally ignored her. So she thought, the only person he's ever going to listen to is Gandhi. So they heard that Gandhi was going to a particular town in Africa, and you know they traveled for miles and miles and miles and miles and miles and miles to see where he is. Fight through the crowd, and the mother says, "Please, will you tell my son to stop eating sugar?" And he says, "Yes, I will. Come back in 2 weeks." "No, tell him now. Come back in 2 weeks." So they walked all the way back, and then they walked all the way back out again to where he was the next time. And she fought through the crowd and said, please, will you tell my son to stop eating sugar? This is the close of the loop, by the way. And I might leave a week in between the open and the close of this. This is what Phil's talking about. And so again, he leans over and he goes, stop eating sugar. At which point the little lad goes like, okay. And he stops. Now his mother's delighted about this because it's what she wanted, but she's a bit confused why she had to wait 2 weeks. So she's delighted, but she said to him, well, thank you. And why did I have to wait 2 weeks and walk all the way back home and walk all the way back out here again before you could tell him, stop eating sugar? And he said, madam, 2 weeks ago, I ate sugar. Which is, I think, Phil, is a great one that I use quite a lot in leadership, as in walking your talk. But that's exactly the structure that you would do if you were going to use nested metaphors or nested loops, and then knock over all of the punchlines, if you like, at the end of the loops.
Good.
Yeah, I think you got it, Phil. Totally.
Thanks.
Linda Weatherly has a question.
Linda, not on the sofa.
There we go, microphone on. I was just intrigued by, I could see the answer coming, but it still made me laugh a lot. So is it the disrupt that, even though you can kind of see where you're going, that still makes you laugh?
Yeah, it's a bit like we were talking about with when I was doing magic last week, I think it was. We know it's a trick, yet we still love it.
Yeah.
Then, and also, you know, obviously the things I was setting up were kind of classic structured jokes, so you get the structure of a joke. So you know there's going to be a punchline.
Yeah.
You don't know what it is because it could go in multiple directions, but you know that there is one. So there's that expectation that there's going to be a punchline, and when it lands, then there is also an expectation that you laugh.
Yes.
Now, when you run this pattern here, like I did with the veterans, they are in a seriously disempowered state. Not the kind of state that you would have for people at a stand-up comedy gig, as an example. So then when I start telling the story, they don't know it's a joke. Because you'll notice that what I did with each of those jokes was I actually wove them into my life story. Yeah. So they don't know it's a joke until you get to do the end bit, which is different than people that are in a stand-up comedy gig. Because people in a stand-up comedy gig are I set it up, I'm going to tell you some jokes, right? So you're going like, okay, there's going to be a punchline. But these people are thinking that this is a genuine story, and then boom, you hit them with the disrupt, which is the punchline. And then they laugh. I mean, these guys have fallen on the floor laughing. Then what you do, this is timing. This is very important in everyday magic. Timing, you ride the laugh. Then you just let them laugh. Then when you see or hear the laugh begin to subside, then you come in with the redirect. Yeah, you grab it back at that point in time. And you know, we can bring in satir categories with that when you put in the disrupt. 2 cups of coffee and an ice cream. People then know you're not being serious and they laugh, and then they're laughing. You ride the laugh and you go like, okay, right, let's get on to releasing the next negative emotion, bringing the control back. But yeah, you're right. It's a bit like, you know, we know that magic is a trick. We know it's not real, or at least stage magic. And yet we still love it. We still go like, wow. You know, I did this online training with David Blaine, and there was one particular card trick that he was doing, and I can do it. And he taught me how to do it, and I did it, and it worked. But even though I was doing it, I hadn't got a fucking clue how it worked, even though it worked. And I knew it was a trick, but I couldn't work out how it worked. I followed the instructions and it worked. But it took me ages to unpack how it actually worked. But I still loved it. And I use that a lot in my NLP trainings now, because it's basically all around the thing that what we actually experience isn't real, it's an illusion. And what stand-up comedians do, what stage magicians do, is they fuck with your illusion. And you know they're doing it. And we still love it. And what we're talking about here is how we can use that in a way where we can enable somebody to shift from a disempowered state to an empowered state, whilst then using all the other things we've talked about, like reframing and all those kind of things, to enable them to conversationally and everyday conversation, enable them to move to where we want them to be.
Thank you. I've just realised it's something I did, or I do, and didn't realise I do in my sort of corporate seminars.
Yep.
So that gives it another, that's why it works. Got it.
Yep. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
No more questions?
No more questions. Great stuff. Well, thanks for joining us, guys, for these 7 days of Everyday Magic. I know a lot of you in the group, so please, contribute in the group, as I know a lot of you are doing. And also, if you've got any ideas about what would be a next topic for our masterclass, then let us know, and I'll put it into the melting pot, and then I'll put it with my ideas as well, and then we'll come up with a new one. We'll take a couple of weeks off, and then we'll get back into our regular masterclass. Yeah. Useful session tonight. So my challenge to you is go out and make as many people as possible laugh. That's the only outcome. Doesn't need to be transformational change, doesn't need to be anything. Just go out there and make people laugh. Laughter, here's just a thing to leave you with. It's a guy called Norman Cousins, and he was a was it called a psychoneuroimmunologist, mind-body medicine, and he was diagnosed with cancer and he believed that he could heal himself of cancer by laughing. So what he did was he took a sabbatical. He went out to the video shops. You remember when we used to have video shops? It'd be a lot easier today. And he rented all of the stand-up comedians, funny movies, funny sitcoms, all of that, and spent all day, every day, watching these funny movies. And he laughed himself like crazy all day, every day. And I think within 6 months, the cancer had disappeared. So laughter is healing. It reduces, releases so many endorphins in your body. And what I'll do, as usual, is I'll put a couple in the group of some comedians, some videos of comedians that I think are particularly funny, just so you can look at them, and also though model them with what you know, because then once you've modeled it, spur of the moment, your own version will come out, and then you are the comedian. And what we're talking about is here comedy with therapeutic outcomes. That's an interesting concept, isn't it? Comedy with therapeutic outcomes. So thanks for joining us, guys. Had great fun over these 7 weeks. We'll see you again soon with our next, whatever it may be that we do.
Thank